Wagwan. Today, we continue the gang relations series with GTA 5. In this video, I'll explain all the beefs and alliances that were present during GTA 5 single player story mode. I'm sorry if some of the threads are going to be described multiple times, but that's for the people who only need to watch selected chapters, so they can still get all the info they need. However, I'll try to abstract each time a thread is repeated to make this watchable for everyone. Now, let's get to it. Chamberlain Gangster Families vs Los Santos Vagos. Chamberlain Gangster Families were a set of the Families Collective, an African-American street gang operating in south-central Los Santos. The highest ranking member of that set we encounter in the game is Harold Joseph, aka Stretch. Their insignia color was green. Los Santos Vagos were the largest Hispanic gang operating in San Andreas, and just like the Families, mainly holding their influence in South LS. At some point, Esteban Jimenez, a member of the Vagos, bought a motorbike on credit at Premium Deluxe Motorsport car dealership in order to hide the money he was making from drug trade. Jimenez hasn't paid his installment on time, so Simeone Eterian, the owner of the dealership, wanted to repossess the vehicle. The workers he sent to retrieve the motorbike were Lamar Davis and Franklin Clinton, both members of the Chamberlain Gangster Families. The kind of repossessions the Eterian was running was an illegal one, so the two gangsters had to invade Jimenez's private property and essentially steal the bike back. The neighborhood in which they were supposed to look for the bike was protected by members of the Vagos who spotted Davis and Clinton, which quickly turned into a bloodshed. The two families' boys managed to kill multiple members of the Vagos and soon after also chased down and killed Esteban Jimenez, retrieving the bike in the end. Thanks to the fact that Davis and Clinton left no breathing witnesses at the scene, neither the Vagos nor the authorities ever found out that they were behind the massacre. Thus, the conflict went continued afterwards. Los Santos Vagos vs Varrios Los Aztecas. This chapter also includes Vagos vs Ballas and Vagos vs Families. In the Los Santos Media News article reporting the just mentioned event, it is stated that the Vagos had long-term conflicts with the Families, the Ballas, and the Barrios Los Aztecas. Those beefs were not, however, emphasized in the story. The only other sign of them I found was the free roam lines of the Families or Ballas gangsters, which include phrases like VK, meaning Vagos Killer, which is what they call themselves sometimes.
Original baller gang, FKVK all day.
Or lines in which they simply disrespect the Vagos.
Fucking Vagos bitches. We gotta finish them chumps.
Forum Gangsters vs Original Covenant Ballers. This chapter ain't really a fully fledged gang relation, but it's a good opportunity to explain what Forum Gangsters really was.
Actually, we ain't CGL for life, cause all that means is we giving you money for nothing. We got our own shit now, homie. Forum Gangsters.
And the truth is that it's pretty unclear to me. At first, it sounded like a sort of a rebellious mini-set started by Franklin Clinton and Lamar Davis, because the former was irritated at having to pay tax to the OGs of the CGF, the set they initially belonged to.
Where my cut, motherfucker? You got to bring the OG in, you dig?
Nah, I don't dig, motherfucker. I ain't into that pyramid shit no more.
However, there are reasons to not treat this seriously. First of all, it's hard to believe that Franklin and Lamar would have the connections and influence in order to form a fully fledged set. They weren't high-ranking gangsters and didn't have the sufficient respect. Secondly, this whole move was obviously not authorized by the CGF, as we can directly hear from Stretch on Lamar's Life Invader page. It would be weird for them to authorize it, since looking at Franklin's view at all this, Forum Gangsters weren't supposed to be paying nothing to the CGF or even belong to the Families Collective at all. Thirdly, it was not even entirely authorized by Lamar, who was too scared of the CGF OGs to be fully committed to the Forum Gangsters idea, and this time, probably rightly so.
We got our own shit now, homie. Forum Gangsters.
Oh, no, he don't mean that, Lo. F just talking outside his neck.
Most likely, it was just a cool gangster sounding name made up by Franklin to get Lamar excited and convince him to their idea. But really, it just described the process of Franklin and potentially Lamar simply becoming independent of the CGF set. And so, Lamar and Franklin at one point decided to kidnap one of the Baller OGs known as D, who is the member of the original Covenant Ballas, a set of the Ballas collective operating in South Central as well and repping purple. This act was not authorized by the CGF, who had at some point prior to the story made peace with the original Covenant Ballas.
Oh shit! What the fuck, man? I ain't got no beef with the CGF. Cause maybe we doing our own thing.
Man, ain't no OCB beef no more.
Until you snatched D, there wasn't.
The kidnapping eventually failed, and worstly, Lamar gave away his identity, which led to many consequences, about which we'll talk about in the next section. Chamberlain gangster families and original Covenant Ballas. As can be concluded from the in-game dialogue, those two factions had already been at conflict at some point prior to the game's story, but had later made peace again. The events of GTA 5 provided a difficult test for that peace. It all started when Lamar Davis and Franklin Clinton, both members of the CGF, unsuccessfully attempted to kidnap D, an OG of the OCB. All the while, Harold Joseph aka Stretch, an OG of the CGF, was doing a bid at Bolingbroke Penitentiary, where he developed positive relations with the members of the OCB. D was eventually freed and informed his people about Davis' involvement in his kidnapping. Strangely, the Ballas soon offered Lamar a drug transaction at a recycling plant in La Puerta. This was apparently meant to be a symbol to put all this conflict behind him. Lamar, as he was not very intelligent, believed this ridiculous scenario and showed up at the meet along with Franklin and Stretch, who were both unaware of the entire context. At the recycling plant, they met up with D, the same dude that Lamar tried to kidnap a few days ago. D, upon seeing Lamar unexpectedly arrived with Stretch, gave away that the whole deal was an ambush. Stretch's presence was appalling because they didn't want to punish him, only Davis and Clinton. Stretch, completely unaware of what's going on and only of the fact that they'd been ambushed, acted instinctively and shot D dead. As the next thing, the three had to shoot their way out of the plant through dozens of armed Ballas, who came to kill Davis and Clinton, but mainly the former. They succeeded and soon Stretch reached out to the Ballas in order to discuss the situation. The conclusion was to teach Lamar a lesson by selling him drywall instead of cocaine in another drug deal, which was supposed to be conducted at Grove Street. Instantly, I can't for sure tell which set of the Ballas was operating at Grove Street, and therefore which set of the Ballas organized the drywall deal. The gangsters there are repping both East Los Santos Ballas as well as the original Covenant Ballas set.
East side, nigga, fuck your hood. Just here keeping the original Covenant shit original, the old-fashioned way. Yeah, tell them again, man.
The OCB name probably comes from the name of the Covenant Avenue, which is situated right next to Grove Street, suggesting Grove Street is their territory. As well as the sole fact that the deal with Lamar was organized at Grove Street points at the territory belonging to the OCB, as this conflict was the OCB's business, not ELS Ballas' business. However, on Life Invader feud page, so the baseball team that the family supported page, one ELS Ballas said, "Thanks for giving us Grove Street," suggesting the turf belonged to the ELS Ballas instead, which would be reinforced by some of the free roam lines.
Then it's the east side, you niggas is bitches.
However, it simply seems as if both Ballas sets were on very good terms and collaborated with each other, and the developers just didn't bother to split the free roam lines into actually proper territories. Or, most likely, they were simply the same set just with two different names. Still, Lamar naively trusted Stretch and went with Franklin and one of his contacts to the deal. Thanks to the unexpected presence of Franklin's contact, he was an experienced drug dealer himself, the Ballas' deception was revealed and the trio was attacked by the Ballas at Grove Street, yet again barely escaping death and killing another heap of Ballas. Lamar, however, despite Franklin explaining him otherwise, still trusted Stretch after the event, This stunt and the fact that Lamar remained yet to be punished resulted in the growing frustration of the Ballas, especially given how many of their members got killed throughout this whole conflict. In the meantime, Lamar scoped out a good spot for growing and stashing marijuana and informed Stretch about it, who passed it on to the Ballas, probably as part of compensation for all the losses Davis had caused them. That weren't enough for the Ballas though, as they wanted to get LD clapped still. At some point, Stretch sent Lamar to the sawmill to meet with the Ballas and resolve the beef. This turned out to be a trap, as Lamar was snatched and battered up by the OCB instead. They ain't kill him straight away though. My bet is that they was waiting for D to arrive and kill Lamar personally as vengeance for the kidnapping. Before that happened though, Franklin found out about Lamar's abduction and managed to rescue him. After that, Lamar finally understood that Stretch was trying to give him up to the Ballas all along and decided to lay low until Franklin had Stretch killed towards the end of the story. The Ballas didn't hit back at Lamar after this. Trevor Phillips Industries vs. The Lost MC. Trevor Phillips Industries was a criminal organization based in Sandy Shores. It was run by Trevor Phillips and occupied itself with drugs and weapons trade. Unlike most gangs we discuss in this series, it was not your classic gang with many members. It was a squad consisting of a few people and their contacts. However, that didn't stop it from competing against the traditional gangs, about which we'll find out in a sec. The Lost MC were a motorcycle gang with multiple chapters throughout the United States, but today we focus on the Blaine County chapter and a certain unnamed chapter which arrived in the county during the story. In 2013, the relationship between the gangs underwent a rapid change. It all started when Trevor Phillips, boss of the TPI, killed Johnny Klebit, the contemporary president of the Lost BC chapter, after he had expressed his objections against Trevor regularly having sex with his girlfriend. After this event, Phillips needed to soon leave the county and take care of personal issues in Los Santos. That's why the death of Klebit was quickly followed by him by a wipeout of the entire chapter of his through an invasion of their main hangout and destruction of their cookhouse where they produced their meth. The wipeout was completed soon after when Trevor Phillips, along with his right-hand man Ron Jakowski, invaded the Lost airport in Sandy Shores and stole their merchandise, again not hesitating to send some souls to heaven. Shortly after this event, another chapter of the Lost was sent down to San Andreas in order to take care of the mess their predecessors pulled off, avenge them, and presumably take up their place. None of which they done, because they soon fell victim to Trevor Phillips themselves, who blew up their main base shortly after they settled there. The Lost was still active later in the story, but they seemingly didn't constitute significant competition to Trevor anymore. Trevor Phillips Industries vs. Varrios Los Aztecas. Varrios Los Aztecas were a Mexican gang operating in Blaine County as well as Los Santos, and they engaged in gun trade. They were run by a man called Ortega. Before the game's events, they seemed to be on neutral terms with the TPI. During the story, however, Ortega was attacked by Phillips, who demanded they cease their operations on his turf. This weren't taken too kindly by the Aztecas, who soon after raided Phillips' meth lab. The raid was unsuccessful, which made them pull back and submit to Trevor's demands. Trevor Phillips Industries and Cartel de Guzman. Guzman's Cartel was a Mexican organization run by Oscar Guzman, who traded firearms. They were one of the buyers of the TPI. One transaction occurred after the TPI stole a significant amount of weapons of the Lost and later sold it to Oscar. From that point on, the two collaborated in managing the supply of weapons within San Andreas, which was destined for Mexico. Later in the story, Trevor also intended to sell Oscar a plane load of military-grade firearms, which he stole from the Merriweather private militia. The transaction was never completed, however, because the military did not allow Trevor to escape with the merch. Trevor Phillips Industries and Wei Cheng Triad. This chapter also includes O'Neill Brothers and Wei Cheng Triad. Wei Cheng Triad were a Chinese gang prominently operating in China and Hong Kong and were led by Wei Cheng. In 2013, Cheng wanted to expand his operations to America and he ended up targeting the state of San Andreas. Their first step was to find a contact within Blaine County in order to commence their operation. The markets they were looking at were the methamphetamine trade and the weapons trade. At first, the organization they wanted to offer a partnership was the TPI, from whom they wanted to buy meth. Their first meeting was however interrupted by the assault of the Varrios Los Aztecas gang, who wanted to hit back at Trevor for threatening their leader Ortega. Trevor, for the time of the attack, decided to lock the two men representing Wei Cheng's Triad, with whom he was meeting, in an icebox. That weren't met with great enthusiasm by the two. This was a little hypocritical on their side because Wei Cheng's son, with whom Trevor met, attended the meeting completely drugged up in the first place. If it weren't for his translator, the meeting would be impossible to conduct entirely. The Triads, who didn't want to continue the partnership with the TPI after the icebox stunt, decided to work with the O'Neill brothers instead. This severely angered Trevor, who punished the O'Neills by blowing up their cookhouse and killing many of the O'Neill soldiers. Sometime after those events, at a point when Trevor was already in Los Santos, Ron Jakowski informed him that the Wei Cheng Triad attempted to find Trevor in Sandy Shores. Much later, the Chinese gangsters managed to kidnap Trevor's friend, Michael DeSanta. They blackmailed Trevor that if he don't give up his interest in Blaine County, they will murder DeSanta. Trevor was very angry with DeSanta, however, since he'd recently found out DeSanta had betrayed him in the past, so the blackmail weren't taken seriously by him. Soon, Phillips had Wei Cheng himself killed, putting an end to this entire feud. Trevor Phillips Industries vs O'Neill Brothers. The O'Neill brothers were a redneck gang who prominently sold methamphetamine in Blaine County. The conflict with the TPI started when the Chinese Triad, who were planning to expand to San Andreas, decided to switch the party they wanted to partner with from the TPI to the O'Neills. This angered the boss of the TPI, who monstrously invaded and blew up their ranch, which resulted in many deaths of their members as well as the destruction of their cookhouse. Sometime later, the O'Neills wanted to avenge themselves upon Trevor by in turn blowing up a flat he'd lived at in recent times in Vespucci Beach. The action was thwarted as the O'Neills were told by one of the Trevor's workers that he was back in Sandy Shores. The O'Neills were additionally spotted by one of Phillips' friends, whom he later assisted in killing the three perpetrators. Los Santos Vagos and the Mafia. In the TV show The Underbelly of Paradise, it is stated that the Vagos have rumored connections to multiple mafias.
They're one of the largest Mexican street gangs in the city, with rumored connections to several major mafias.
No further details on the mafias and on the conflict were given, however. The families versus the Ballas. In the same show, it is said that the Ballas are sworn rivals of the families.
The families love sports almost as much as they love banging. Flashy, arrogant, competitive, and aggressive, they are lifelong bitter enemies of the Ballas.
This is confirmed in a couple of other places. On the Life Invader of the feud, so the team of baseball the families support, the Ballas and the families constantly disrespect each other in their posts, showing the clear animosity between the organizations, despite them not conducting almost any serious wars. And also on Stretch's Life Invader, we can see him disrespecting the Ballas gang as well. Chamberlain Gangster families versus Carson Avenue families. Carson Avenue families were another set of the families collective. In the show The Underbelly of Paradise, it is strongly suggested that that set faced some conflicts with the CGF set.
Subdivided into sets such as the Chamberlain Gangsters and the Carson Avenue set, it turns out the families love shooting each other almost as much as they love shooting Ballas.
Varrios Los Aztecas versus Marabunta Grande. Marabunta Grande was a Salvadorian gang operating most notably in El Burro Heights, and they were engaged in a weapons trade. In one of the Weasel news reports, we find out that they clashed over the weapons market with the Varrios Los Aztecas gang.
The smuggling of weapons from the U.S. into Mexico has transformed the Sonora Desert region into a war zone in recent months, with rival traffickers including Mexican gang Varrios Los Aztecas and El Salvadoran gang the Marabunta Grande clashing over supply routes.
However, I was unable to find any other signs of that conflict in the game's story. And that's actually it for today. This isn't obvious at first glance, but GTA 5 actually doesn't revolve around gangs a lot. This is a huge difference from the rest of the series. The story of GTA 5 is a lot more about personal affairs of the characters rather than running countless errands for gangsters or warring with thugs on the streets. Plus, gangs have been vastly replaced in this game by non-criminal organizations such as the Merryweather or the government agencies. Is that a bad thing? Well, that's subjective. I don't think it's a problem at all. It's just something different, and I think it has its advantages. For me, this kind of personal life story narrative of the game makes it the most immersive for me. The missions carry more depth in GTA 5 because in previous titles, it was mostly the arcadish and simplified drive there, kill these gangsters, steal those drugs and go back. And that's not bad neither. I personally love both approaches if they done properly. Let me know your thoughts on it and if I missed anything, because despite I done my research, I feel like I may have in the case of this video. Anyway, leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video or found it useful, subscribe if you're looking for more GTA content, check out the playlist section if you're new to the channel, because there's plenty of, I think, pretty cool content released already and some of it went under the radar. Thanks for watching today, take care and respect.